Welcome back to Sunday Wire. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are today. This is a global show, of course, so, I don't know what time of day it is for you, but for me, I'll say good morning. Now, I'm Bryan McClain, also known as Hesher, over here on the Sunday Wire. I'm sitting in once again for Patrick Henningsen. Well, here we are. Another week, another unexpected escalation. Except if you've been paying attention for the last, I don't know, 20 years or maybe even the last 20 months, it really isn't unexpected at all. We're constantly being told that every new military action is about restoring deterrence, achieving stability, restoring peace, restoring peace. But the funny thing is, every time somebody says they're restoring peace, the map gets a little more on fire. This week, the United States attacked Iran directly, and go figure, Iran answered back with missiles aimed at a U.S. military base in Jordan. Gee, who would have thunk? And now, suddenly, everybody in Washington seems shocked that retaliation actually happened. What exactly did they think was going to happen? If you bomb another country, if you continue expanding military operations across the region, if you place thousands of American service members inside the blast radius of someone else's war, are we really supposed to believe there would never be consequences? So, us, we're just doing the journalism here. This isn't about cheering for one side or the other. It's about it's just about what's right and wrong. It isn't about waving flags or picking teams. It's about whether the people making these decisions ever intend to pay the price themselves. Or is it just always going to be someone else's son or daughter standing on the runway when the missiles come in? I didn't see anyone from the Trump family out there. Didn't see anyone from the Wickoff family out there. Didn't see any Kushners out there. Didn't see Marco out there taking flack. So I don't know. Is this a change? Maybe it is. We'll examine what's changed this week because I think something has. The illusion, perhaps, that this conflict could remain contained, that America could project force indefinitely without eventually absorbing some of the consequences. Maybe now, perhaps, that illusion has been fractured, shattered for some people. I can imagine shattered because they're actually admitting that a couple people lost their lives, which many of us suspect is a minimized number. But I assume family members have been contacted, at least for the couple that they're willing to go on record about. I'm sure there are a lot of family members out there who have loved ones stationed in Jordan who don't know what's going on or maybe hasn't heard from them. That's not a fun way to have a state-funded illusion shattered. So, a little further into the program here, we're going to have a special report from Patrick Henningsen, who's still traveling and reporting overseas. I'm not even sure where he's at. I'm going to find out with you. We're getting a fresh video here, hot off the presses from Patrick. I think it's probably going to be one of his famous walk and talk videos. So I'm excited to see the scenery and listen to his analysis, hear about his travels. And of course, after the Overdrive break happens, we'll launch into Overdrive, and I'll be joined by Ruckus, aka Adam Clark, and Basil Valentine for Overdrive. And you know what? I'm just really glad you're with us. So thank you for being here today on the Sunday Wire. There it is. Says it right there. Sunday Wire. This is the Sunday Wire. Now, of course, you're going to want to check out our weekly Sunday screening. This week, this one's a tough one to watch. At least it was for me. I've just already downloaded and input so much terrible events and gruesome deaths and massive destruction, genocide, ethnic cleansing by Israel and their partners in the Middle East. But hey, Israel, everybody's got their eyes on you right now. More eyeballs than ever. And if you're one of those set of eyeballs and you have a tough stomach and you already know what's going on and you're kind of prepared for what you're going to see, our Sunday screening, our weekly documentary film curated by the editorial team here at 21 Wire, this week is called Complicit: How the West is Helping Israel Seize the West Bank. So this was it spurs from an undercover Al Jazeera investigation, and it does a very good job of exposing how Western donors allegedly exploit charitable networks to fund illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. So these folks that did this got some pretty crazy footage. They went in posing as British donors, and reporters secretly filmed pro-settler organizations explaining how tax deductible contributions could be routed through charities in the UK and Canada. So, more shell game, more money moving around, more red tape surfing. To what ends? Well, to kick people off of their family land, to destroy their ability to thrive there, to even have water or fuel. It's uh, it's pretty messed up. They use this money to demolish Palestinian homes. Um, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that they use this money for. I mean, they'll buy settlers drones and night vision equipment. They'll help them purchase firearms. It's absolutely insane, and people should know about it. So definitely recommend that you check out our Sunday screening this week. Now, we got to start with Iran striking back here. There was a missile and drone attack on the Muwafq Sati Air Base in Jordan, where 2 American service members were reportedly killed. Last I checked, I haven't seen any updates today. I'm sure there are some out there. Uh, there's another person reported missing. There are people reported as wounded. And this is a pretty significant base there in Jordan for the U.S. It hosts a large amount of U.S. air operations. But, this was not an unprovoked Iranian attack on Americans minding their own business. It was retaliation, right? Retaliation within a war the United States chose to enter and has repeatedly escalated. So, why were American personnel stationed at this base? What missions are being supported from Jordan? Hmm? I mean, there's clearly a reason why that target was picked. And again, why does Washington assume it can bomb Iran at the behest of Israel without exposing American air bases across the region to retaliation? I mean, as I said coming in, we hear about deterrence, right? Deter this, restore that. Well, I mean, is deterrence becoming like one of those Orwellian terms, perhaps? Just doesn't mean what it used to mean or what it says it means. If you look it up, if it's not in your vocabulary. I think maybe deterrence now means what would be really, really globalese, what would be really Orwellian for deterrence. I know. I'll replace it with a two-word definition: inviting retaliation. How about that? Their deterrence is now a euphemism for inviting retaliation, perhaps? And again, what did they think was going to happen? Have you seen the footage? It's been going around on X. I'm going to put it on the screen for you. It does not look pleasant to see fire and shrapnel raining down, right? No one likes to think about that happening, I don't know, to American soldiers. But a lot of people have been seeing that happen. J dams, hellfires, tomahawks raining down for a very, very long time now on a densely populated small piece of land with no real military force, no way to go, nowhere to escape. So Iran struck back. I'm going to put this footage up for you. Let me read this. A lot of people have posted this, but Blumenthal posted it and said footage by a U.S. soldier at the Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, where the U.S. military is defending apartheid Israel from the consequences of wars it starts. At least 2 soldiers were killed in this retaliatory Iranian attack. Many are injured, and several among them aren't expected to make it. These U.S. service members were sent to die for Israel. There's no way around that fact. That's what Max Blumenthal posted when he put this video up. Here you go. I'm sure that must have been scary for some of those folks. And this is the cost. This is the human cost right here for the United States side. I mean, you know, these service members that died there, they didn't write these policies. Anyone who lost their life there, they didn't design the U.S. Israel military architecture. They were placed in the line of fire by officials who believed Iran could be attacked indefinitely without American personnel ever paying the price. that's not really war. That's not how wars work. And apparently, the Trump administration doesn't care that that's not the way that war works, does not care that they've lied over and over again about why this is happening, why they're doing it, why they're sending thousands of our American troops there. And what does he say? What does Trump say? What's his best one? Well, he claims the troops died preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. I can't think of a time an American has pulled me aside and having a talk about politics, geopolitics, current events, whatever in my whole life where somebody said, "Oh, I'm super concerned about Iran. I'm concerned they'll get a nuclear weapon." Literally the only people I've ever heard say that are these ghouls that are slowly exiting stage left from Capitol Hill right now. Talking about you, Lindsay. Talking about you, Mitch. You too, John. And so many others. But where's the evidence? There's none. It's all propaganda. And they're going to send, well, they have sent troops there to die. And it sure is unpopular here. Certainly is unpopular here. Only the most disconnected, lowest of low literacy GOP voters think this is okay. And I got news for you. That's probably not enough to win midterms or 2028 or whatever. And I don't know what kind of legs the GOP thinks it has to stand on because most people are upset. If they're not upset about this, they're upset about surveillance. They're upset about technocracy incoming. They're upset about the tech bros. They're upset about the economy. They're upset about the inflation. They're upset about the low quality of life. They're upset about the tsunami of incoming austerity. They're upset that they can't afford houses. They're upset that the media and the government and the intelligence agencies and Hollywood and the political class have dropped in our laps over the last few years scamdemics, culture wars, gender wars, all this. Can't afford health care, sick and can't get better, assaulted by the medical industry, overprescribed drugs that have wrecked their lives. These kind of things are what people are thinking about. So good luck, GOP, because you know what? You have the House, you have the Senate, you have the White House, you pretty much have the entire media. And these things I just mentioned and a whole bunch more are getting worse. So you add on top of that indefinite strikes against Iran, a seemingly unending issue with Ukraine, Russia, everything going on in South and Central America, Africa. And the GOP has all the seats that, well, they have the majority of the seats. And what are they doing? Well, it looks to me like they're making a lot of money and they're really clamping in to that despicable partnership with Israel. That seems to be the thing. That's what they want, right? I got some data points on that we'll cover today. Just as a preview to do with that whole merging of Israel's military with America's military. What is that? Section 219, if memory serves, of the NDAA? Yeah, some developments there. But, is this protecting the United States? Is those soldiers who lost their lives there, who were maimed there, whose lives will be forever changed, whose families' lives will be forever changed, did they do that protecting America from Iran? It's a rhetorical question we can all ask ourselves. Like, what would those people be doing if they hadn't gone there? Or better yet, uh, what would Iran be doing if we had never bombed them? Probably the same stuff they were doing before we started bombing them, which I do not see as attacking America or making America worse in any way. I see our own politicians, our own media, our own bankers, our own corporate entities, our own medical industrial complex, our own insurance complex. This system is doing that. And those that say that got elected on Make America Great and Make America First, well, clearly, we are beyond the pale of the shadow of those lies. Now we're on to new ones. Absolutely insane. This is just insane to me to think that this government did not expect retaliatory strikes. Remember when they lied and said, oh, their military's wiped out, right? Remember when they lied and said, oh, their navy's wiped out? Oh, they lied. We killed their leader, and the government's going to totally change there. The people are stoked. Mm-mm. Lies, lies, lies. So, the escalation cycle is insane. Washington attacks Iran. Iran retaliates against regional bases, U.S. bases. And these American deaths are presented without context. And on top of that, even worse so, if you're looking at your silver check marks out there on X, these deaths of American soldiers are being used to justify additional U.S. attacks. I don't get it, man. It's like simple college logic 101. Each new strike creates the rationale for the next retaliation. And then what? Well, in real time, in our little MK Ultra feedback loop boxes on social media, and woe is you if you're watching mass media cartel stuff, but I get it. But in real time, right, the retaliation is stripped of its history and repackaged as like some sort of opening act. And furthermore, we're seeing a lot of reports of Iranian villages losing water after strikes on desalination systems. So, how many times do we have to see this? Bomb a civilian train track, bomb desalination systems, bomb schools, and what? Repackaged. Again, it's like the reverse repackaging on those stories. Repackaged as, oh, that's a lie. That didn't happen. While we're sitting there looking at footage of it, watching parents put pieces of children in bags. Can you believe I have to say that on a camera, on a live stream, in front of all these people? But yeah, that's what we saw more than once. But those are repackaged, right? Those are repackaged. These are all repackaged in real time. But sorry, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you talk to anyone that works is a military veteran or who works in the military, they may not tell you about it these days, but veterans will tell you the American military is very, very good at intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, uh, having people like joint tactical air controllers on the ground if they are going to drop bombs to make sure that there's actually a human in the loop and that said munitions won't be causing unnecessary collateral damage. The United States military has done that, has the ability to do that. It's highly written into the rules of engagement. At least it used to be, but I recall Keg's Breath saying something about F the rules of engagement. I hope everybody paid attention when he did say that because that's the kind of thing he's talking about effing off, right? Having a responsible joint tactical air controller or someone like that who has eyeballs on a target, who knows there are military targets in there, and who can communicate to whatever's being dropped, whatever platform's dropping it. Hey, this needs to come east west, or else you're going to take out a whole block and kill 147 school children. That's how we can do stuff. That's how we used to do stuff. And I do have a little bit of experience with that, a little bit of direct experience with that. So, to bomb a desalination system, to bomb a train track, to bomb a school, you can't say you had bad intel. I'm doing my best to make sure nobody buys that particular repackaging. It's not an oopsie. If it wasn't oopsie, we wouldn't be seeing it all the time. So, interesting also, the Jordanians, there was some reactions, covered the reactions from the United States there, but some people in Jordan, I don't think they like so much that United States military base there. So there was, and you'll probably see this image on the show page, but I would like to show you this video. This was posted by a Syrian girl, a Jordanian overjoyed at Iranian missiles hitting the U.S. airbase in Iran. Let's take a look at this footage here.
اجواء عالميه حرب حرب والله حرب والله حرب حرب يعني واحنا ما دخلنا بالحرب يعني ابو احنا ايش دخلنا؟ احنا دخلنا ونمناه عليه ثروه الصبح.
So that's gone fairly viral on X. A lot of people saw that video. And, again, kind of makes you wonder about America's whole setup in the Middle East, right? Bases in Iraq, bases in Jordan, bases just about everywhere. Clearly not beloved by some of the locals. So that footage has been definitely going around. So, yeah, U.S. forces use Jordanian territory for regional military operations. You know what? In Jordan, the population includes many people with direct ties to Palestine. So, you got to expect that. You know, hosting American military infrastructure can turn a nominal ally into something else. So Washington calls these countries partners, but often treats them as launch pads, shields, and guess what? Retaliation zones. If you hadn't picked it up yet, today's episode of the Sunday Wire is called Retaliation Doctrine. So, you know, that little clip right there kind of helps distinguish between Jordan as a state and the Jordanian public and how they feel about the American military presence inside of Jordan. I just wish that we had a real media here. I wish we even like the older school propagandists that still would go do war correspondence and stuff like that and lie about it. Now it's just believe the lies, shut up, pleb, support us, or be on a list, right? Give us your money, let us tax the crap out of you, and let us use that money against you to surveil you, and then against Israel's enemies. All right, well, that's enough of that for now. I'm going to need some backup. I'm going to need my people, or I'm going to spin out on this topic. So, Patrick Henningsen, as I mentioned, he remains on the road and he's doing his work. I know he's really busy out there, but he has sent us a pre-recorded dispatch addressing these situations that are developing. We're going to bring that to you, and when we return from the music break, Basil, Valentine, and Adam Clark, aka Ruckus, will be joining us for Overdrive to kind of talk me off the ledge here. Hand me a smoke. Talk me off the ledge. Because this conflict, I don't like where it's heading. And I don't like what Washington's latest escalation means for the wider region. So, tell you what, we're going to kick it over to Patrick Henningsen here. This is the Sunday Wire. And this is Patrick Henningsen.
So as far as iconic industrial spaces go in the world, I would say this ranks definitely in the top tier. This is now the Tate Modern Gallery, but a few years ago this was an abandoned electricity generation plant. So this was Bankside Power Plant. And Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who also designed the Battersea Power Station, another iconic industrial landmark in London. And he's also the designer of the iconic red phone box, the quintessential British red phone box. And so in terms of architects and designers, I'd say probably one of the most consequential British designers maybe ever, in terms of like providing the look, either the London industrial look as it's now known, or the legendary red pill box, red phone box. They're still around, although the phones aren't working. But now it's the Tate Modern. So about 25 years ago, this became a museum, but it was abandoned for a long time. I think this plant, what was in here, these massive turbines generated electricity for, on this site, almost for 100 years, from like 1890s to early 1980s, and then it was abandoned for like 15 years, and they decided to do a massive refurb, and it is quite an incredible space. And we thought well, you can have a good look here. I mean, look at that. That's what you walk into. So this empty cavern in the middle, and then on the side, you have various exhibitions of modern art. And I thought this was an interesting location to start our conversation today. And well, we're going to go up to the upper level and maybe look at things from a different angle. But this is episode 604 of the Sunday Wire, your weekly omnibus news and analysis radio program. We're broadcasting from central London right now, and as you can see, I am not in the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're back in Europe. We're not officially Europe. Europe, sort of broadly Europe. The UK, it's another issue. But yeah, we thought we'd do something a little bit different. We've got some issues. We'll talk about geopolitics today. We'll also talk about some reflections and thoughts about what's happening in the world, but also about this program as well. And just to give you a little look into my methodology, I've got kind of a different filming routine today because apparently my camera crew didn't show up this morning. No, I'm just kidding. Selfie sticks are illegal in certain venues. But we'll do something a little bit different. I want to say a big thanks to Hesher and Ruckus and Alternate Current Radio. We have a great team for filling in for me while I was on the road. And I think we're doing really important work in Iran. You probably saw some of the reports that we released as well. That was an incredible trip. And we witnessed many incredible things. And I'm glad we were able to share some of that with you. Also, some reports that we filed for the UK column. A few exclusive interviews also from Iran. And a few other reports as well. We did a wrap-up analysis on Friday on the UK column news, if you watched that. And we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts. I mean, things have really escalated in Iran regarding U.S. strikes, Iranian retaliations, inevitable. And for some reason, well, we'll explain to you why, and probably if you watch these other reports, you know why, because we've already told you. It's the same thing we told our viewers probably before anybody else. And I'm not blowing our own horn here. I don't want to do that. But we did call this quite early. But about the memorandum of understanding was just a sham. It was a ruse. The United States never intended on any peace process, and we'll talk about that. It was a ruse to escalate and to try to degrade Iran's ability to manage the Strait of Hormuz. So those of you playing around, with the idea that J.D. Vance is a dove and he was trying to broker a deal and that Trump wanted out of the war, it's complete lies, complete balderdash, okay? Trump and Vance do what they're told. They work for global capital. They work for Israel, period. End of story. And any other play acting you see in between is really just piecemeal theater to try to make it look like it's an honest show. It's not. But we thought we'd do something a little bit different today. Again, thanks to our team. We have a great team at Alternate Current Radio, 21st Century Wire. Hesher, Ruckus, Freddie Ponton, and also our other people helping us behind the scenes. There are other names as well I could mention, but anyway, we have a great team, so we're able to. It's allowed me to do things like go and actually report in the field and do what is important work in the sense that the commentary that I was delivering from Iran was, I would say, slightly different than anything else that was being reported, or at least not said in the way that I'm saying it. And I think there's a lot of value in that. So that's why it's important for us to be there. Obviously, it's not cheap, comes at great expense in terms of time, money, and risk as well in some cases. But it's important. It's important that we're there to witness, that we're there to report, to tell the story, to tell you the truth as close as we can approximate based on our knowledge and experience. And yeah, so I think we did that, and we would like to take the opportunity to do that again if it's feasible. But yeah, so we'll do something a little bit different today. I mean, I could give you a boilerplate, monologue. I was speaking to one of the podcasts that I frequent during the week. I often talk to the hosts of these shows that have quite big audiences. One gentleman we were talking to has got a big, pretty decent following, decent show. And we were just discussing that there's a lot of channels on YouTube that people, they put out videos daily, but a lot of people that are speaking to camera daily, and they have big channels. And I think YouTube algorithm likes boilerplate formatted content. So it really likes people reading off scripts or reading off auto cue or teleprompters, as they call them in America. And so there's some hosts that have grown their channel basically by using ChatGPT to generate their script. And then they just read that, do some impromptu commentary on their script, and as it scrolls, they're basically reading ChatGPT, some kind of analysis with some customization on it. And you can grow, you can do really well doing that. But what I found was interesting, and what this other person told me, which actually makes a lot of sense, is that you don't see any of these commentators actually doing impromptu commentary on any other programs. They don't live outside of their channel. And one of the reasons is a lot of them can't talk ad hoc. They can't talk off the cuff because all they do all day is read a script. And in this case, it's generated by Claude or ChatGPT, and that's why all these channels are sounding exactly the same. It's like you're hearing one voice. There's like one voice, and it's like the voice of AI. And it's just, a lot of people are starting to comment on this now. It's just getting, it's insufferable. It's getting annoying to a lot of people that can kind of spot the difference. I think people who aren't even looking for it feel like this is going on. So, and this is a big thing on YouTube. This is a big issue because a lot of the content is AI generated now. I think it's the overwhelming majority of the content on YouTube is fully AI generated, voice to video, okay? And sometimes that's not a bad thing if there's some work that's gone into it in terms of the creativity, especially some of the films are quite good. And the scripts are original, but they're using AI voices. Okay, that's a different story. But when the hosts and presenters are reading off a script for your average 20 or 30 minute video, and it's, it's not really original, and you can kind of tell the difference. And so that's the sort of conundrum that we find ourselves in. And again, you don't see those hosts on other programs giving kind of relevant commentary on these very issues that they're talking about every day. It's like they're just kind of on autopilot. And so there's a media exhibition right now here that is just fascinating. And I was here yesterday, and with an old friend I hadn't seen in a very long time. How long? Long time. Over 40 years. Someone I was very good friends with as a child. And we just recently reconnected. And And he's an artist, and also a very accomplished artist, in fact, and in his field, very accomplished, well-known, and I would call him an innovator, if you will. It's incredible. We've taken, we have similar life journeys. We come from a very small town of 5,000 people, but was somehow followed somewhat similar paths, which is an incredible thing in itself. But we're in here yesterday just marveling at some of the media exhibitions here, the mixed media, the sort of analog methods that you can only do in a real physical space. So AI can't do that, and that's why you come here and you just see possibilities, you see potential, you see a blank canvas and you think, wow, what can we put on that canvas? What can we fill that space with, and what different mediums can we use to activate all the aspects of this empty space, be it in a gallery, be it in a space like this. I mean, where I'm standing now, this used to be a giant spider behind me. So this was a giant iron spider with, it was the most, you've probably seen this exhibition if you've been in London many years ago when the Tate Modern first opened. I don't know who the sculptor was, but it was frightening but quite spectacular at the same time. And this was just an artist with an idea. I'm not down with all of Damien Hirst's work and all this other stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big critic of a lot of modern art, but also it's about activating the space. It's about painting the space, painting it with light, painting it with paint, medium, painting it with objects, and creating negative space, all of these things. That's really what it's about. So that's why it's a real privilege to be able to come to here, and that's why we're talking to you from this space as well. We'll get into some pithy issues. We might even have to step outside to do that. But yeah, we might actually do that. We might step outside to talk a little bit more about what's going on. I'm going to head over to the river, and we'll have a conversation about geopolitics. But anyway, welcome to the Sunday Wire. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network, as you know. And yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. We're going to step outside for a moment. You're going to get a totally different look here. Check this out. As we get outside a little bit here, and I'm going to cross the Thames in a minute. So we're going to talk about the geopolitics, Iran, Yemen, Saudi Arabia. This is all back on the table. So the theater is widening, and it's hard to know where this is going to go constructively. Me personally, I see a lot of destruction, a lot of potential for a lot of devastation. That's what's coming. But let's not let the bad news deter the glorious views here of the historic Thames. Just having a look down there, that's towards southwest London, that's towards east London. I'll tell you a little story when we get up to the top, which is very interesting, about London Bridge. Some of you may or may not know a little history about what happened to London Bridge. It's It's in Arizona. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. There's a story behind that. So, an American entrepreneur, this would have been, I'm not sure what year this was. Might have been like, I think it was in the 60s. Might have been like 1968, something like that. And there was an American entrepreneur named Robert McCullough. And he had the brilliant idea of buying London Bridge. You know the kids' nursery song, London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. My Fair Lady. So he was, I want to buy London Bridge. And so he bought it for $2.4 million. A princely sum back in 1968, I can assure you, although that could barely buy you a shoebox and a parking spot today in Chelsea. Nonetheless, $2.4 million. Dismantled it brick by brick and brought it. It's in Lake Havasu, Arizona. So it's languishing in the Arizona heat. So that's an interesting story. Now there's an urban myth. If we look in the distance, you'll see Tower Bridge, which you can just about see from here. See if we can get a little view of Tower Bridge. And way, way in the distance, you'll see Tower Bridge, the iconic Tower Bridge. And the urban myth is that he thought he was buying Tower Bridge, and then when it was shipped to Arizona and he unpacked it, there were no towers there. It was really just London Bridge, which is really a replica of the Charles Bridge in Prague, in the Czech Republic, today's Czech Republic. So not very fancy, kind of flat. But anyway, the family claim that's an urban myth, and that didn't actually happen, and that he actually got the bridge that he paid for. So, you know, whatever. But interesting story. Imagine that. Dismantled it brick by brick, and now it's for college students on spring break on houseboats. Keggers on Lake Havasu. So I think that's a real low point in the story of the British Empire, having to flog off your historical wares for spring break attractions in Arizona. Anyway, we're heading towards St. Paul's Cathedral right now. This is the suspension bridge that was built here right from the Tate Modern. You take a look. That's what it looks like from this. So that's the Bankside Power Station there. Now the Tate Modern Art Museum, where we just were. This is heading down. There's the infamous Shard, not my favorite building in the world. And in the very distance there, as I said before, Tower Bridge, City of London. That's where it all happens. The Square Mile. Retained its square mile status from Roman times. Old name, Londinium. London comes from Londinium of Roman lore. But anyway, that's the very brief 30-second history lesson of the city of London. We're not going to showcase any of the Masonic symbology or the various Illuminati motifs, which you find on every single building and guild and worshipful company of whatnot in the city. So yes, that's the power network that used to run the world, arguably still does to a certain degree, but nothing like it once did. Now we're into a whole new network of money and power. But so let's talk about international politics before we exit here. And so, as I said before, ceasefire's over in Iran. The MOU is toast. And that's all by design. There was never any intent to have any negotiations, anything meaningful anyway. This has all been a big ruse for the U.S. and Israel to buy time to rearm and reload for another military escalation. The danger, of course, of this is what is that escalation going to be, besides trying to knock out Iran's ability to physically manage and administer traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. This is a big objective of the Trump administration, of course, in Israel, because that's the leverage that really a lot of people were calling this Iran's nuclear deterrent, or the equivalent of a nuclear deterrent, i.e. the control of the strait is as powerful and potent as an actual nuclear deterrent. So that people have been saying that for a while. So obviously that memo made it all the way to Washington and Tel Aviv, and it was like, well, we're going to do everything humanly possible to remove that deterrent that Iran has, that source, a great source of leverage. So that's what they're doing. So orchestrating provocations, trying to direct shipping into close to the Omani coast, in Omani territorial waters. So you have Iranian and Omani territorial waters butting up against each other. There is no international waters in the Strait of Hormuz. There's no room for international waters. So U.S., a British agency as well, that posts maritime alerts and warnings for shipping. They've also been kind of implicated, if you will, of posting this, directing shipping, most infamously the Singaporean flagged tanker that Iran fired on because it was in violation of the Iranian Administrative Shipping Protocol, which was part of Clause 5 and Clause 4 of the Memorandum of Understanding. So this was all in the agreement with the U.S., but the U.S. didn't like it when Iran enforced the agreement. And then he said that, that's going to be a justification for the U.S. to launch airstrikes against Iran, and that was 2 weeks ago, and that's the escalation cycle that we're currently in. So the U.S. is basically creating provocations to give excuses to escalate militarily, because what they really want to do is knock out all kinds of Iranian infrastructure, military targets, radar sites, freshwater facilities, things that will make life unlivable or massively disrupted for civilians, and of course people working for the government, and of course the military in Iran. That's the U.S. plan. So there was never, and I repeat, it's very important you understand this concept, there was never any intention of the U.S. nor any of its emissaries to do any kind of productive negotiations. Zero. Didn't happen. It was all theater. All theater. They only had one intention, which was to inflict death by 1,000 cuts on Iran and use this whole MOU facade as a sort of cover, if you will, for military objectives. The U.S. doesn't have a lot in terms of an arsenal, so they have to restock and rebuild that. That's going to take months, so they need to create this kind of false negotiation. So what they're doing now this week, hitting Iranian desalination plants, attacking civilian infrastructure. So they're trying to, what the U.S. is doing, Trump believes he can create leverage to, quote, force Iran to the table, and then create another kind of fake round of negotiations. And this will just keep going. And the U.S. is doing these sort of 60-day rollover renewals from the executive branch to avoid congressional oversight for the War Powers Act. So that's also part of this. So the U.S. can wage war without having to go through Congress on a 60-day rollover. So you can see that kind of 60-day cycle coinciding with the 60 days of fake negotiations. Okay, we said this on multiple occasions. This is exactly what's happened, and this is about as close of an accurate analysis I think you'll get. There's still people playing around with this fake idea. There's a lot of people on who go onto podcasts on YouTube, and this is one of the problems with American politics. And there's a lot of people that think that J.D. Vance will be president in 2028. And so there's a lot of people that are positioning themselves as advisors to a Vance administration or cabinet positions. These are people on podcasts. So they want to be given favorable access to the next presidential administration. So they're not saying anything critical about Vance, and they're putting forward the sort of fake kind of reality that he departs from Donald Trump and he's not as hawkish and he's not going to take orders from the Israelis, and it's not true. And a lot of these are people that are not wanting to be too critical to Vance for fear of spoiling a job opportunity or a clout opportunity. And it's even worse than that. When you have politicians going on these podcasts, it's exactly like the mainstream media. If you say anything critical, then you might not be able to get them on your podcast. Likewise, if you're a guest, if you say anything critical of a host, you won't be invited on that podcast. So, there's politics within the milieu, if you will, of this kind of so-called alternative media. And I know a lot of people that are caught up in that, either because they want to be guests on all these big shows because it'll help blow up their audience, their membership, it'll help them monetize what they're doing. And then there's hosts that don't want to criticize Vance or other people because they're afraid that they won't be able to get them on as a guest, or they might lose access in the future to the White House. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly the same as the mainstream media, exact same system, no different at all. So in that respect, it's pretty much the same system. So anyway, I just thought I'd point out some of those ugly realities, if you will. But anyhow, the thing about Yemen coming back in the news, Saudi Arabia bombed Sana'a airport in Yemen. So, it more or less had an effective ceasefire going from, around 2023, 2022. Hostilities between Saudi and Yemen have severely de-escalated. So they had a type of a truce going, not fully, but for the most part. And all of a sudden, the Saudis back again. And there was a reason why there was a cessation of hostilities before, and the reason was because Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis, as the Americans call them, the Houthis bombed Saudi Aramco oil refineries, massive ones, and that sent absolute shockwaves through the energy markets, and Saudi security was then thrown massively into question. So why would you sacrifice all of that and to start a round of escalation with Yemen, with Ansar Allah? Yemen's partitioned at the moment. You've got what Saudi call the legally recognized government in the south in Aden, and you have the Ansar Allah controlled northern part of Yemen. Sana'a is the former capital, and the Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis, are establishing it as the working capital. So it effectively, without saying so, it's been a civil war in Yemen. So while the Western media won't, it's a foreign-backed civil war. But so why the Western media won't acknowledge that, that's the reality of the situation. So why would Saudi do that? Suicidal. I think they're being pushed heavy by the United States, and they claim that Iran was, flying in weapons or whatever into Yemen, and I think the U.S. or Israel gave orders, probably the U.S. to Saudi. You better get involved again, and of course, Yemen retaliates by targeting Riyadh airport, and it won't end there. There'll be Aramco facilities. You've got the Saudi's petrol lifeline. Because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, they're exporting oil via the petrol line, east-west pipeline, and Yanbu, the port of Yanbu on the Red Sea. Yemen can shut that down. The Houthis can shut that down anytime they want, and they will. And so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the Saudi Arabian point of view why they would do that. So there's clearly coercion going on. There's orders have been drawn up. So probably from the Trump administration, Again, global capital, it doesn't really have Iran on the cards. They've got a different Middle East. They're clinging on now. Qatar has now painted a target on itself, allowing the U.S. to use Al Udeid military base to attack Iran, ditto with Kuwait, ditto with Jordan. All of these monarchies in the Middle East, these Western puppet states, by doing this, they're really creating an existential crisis for themselves, because these are not viable states or countries. They don't, and it goes deeper than what you think. It's not just because they're monarchies, but these countries don't respect the sovereignty of other non-monarch countries. They believe with their cash, with their money at the direction of the CIA or nudging by the U.S. and Israel, that they can go and basically, fund radical Salafist, Takfiri opposition to, take down Syria, destroy Lebanon, whatever. And Yemen's a good example. Sudan's a good example. Look at the behavior of the UAE in destabilizing and literally stealing territory, using African mercenary armed infantry to fight their various wars, proxy wars on behalf of really the empire. So, but the point is, these Gulf monarchies, they're flirting with an existential disaster because these are not viable actual states. They're artifacts of the British Empire. The British created and basically anointed all of these tribal sheikdoms and made them into the countries they are today. And they're not real. I mean, imagine, these are not natural. I mean, if you think that Sykes-Picot and the carving up of the Levant was a disaster, look at what they've done to Arabia. So you look at all the countries under attack, or the ones that the U.S. and Israel want to break up and take down are the non-monarch states: Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, Egypt. Okay, they haven't bought them off or have them under a military dictatorship like Egypt. They want to break them up and take them down. And that's what they've done. That's the agenda. And a lot of this is directed by Israel now, because Israel can't accept an Arab nationalist state or an Arab republic. They just can't accept it. At least it has to be completely compliant and subservient to the U.S. Otherwise, they can't exist. Just look at what's happening. My analysis is pretty foolproof on this topic, because you just look at the results. That's exactly what's happened, and it's been happening. So the source of instability in the region really is Israel, number one, but also the compliant Gulf monarchies that allow the U.S. to use it as a launching pad for wars of aggression, for undeclared wars of aggression. So that's another disturbing development, that Yemen's back in the news. And the other one is that the British government had passed this new National Security Act, which is more amorphous, arbitrary, and vague than the use of the Terrorism Act in order to label enemies of the state. It's hard to know where that definition begins or ends, and that's the whole point. Is it's just a relative spectrum that any political leadership can turn the dial in any direction, whatever they feel like doing. It doesn't need to have any specifics. So they've sort of, through this, not through the Terrorism Act, but proscribed or designated the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a terrorist entity. Ergo, anybody seeming to show support, sympathy, or not being aggressive against the IRGC is doomed to fall foul of this interpretive, relative piece of legislation. So That's just like with Hezbollah and with all of the other Palestinian resistance orgs, anyone opposing Israel in the region gets immediately labeled a terrorist organization by America, by its allies, by Britain, by France, by the EU, by Germany, etc. And by doing so, you can't have any dialogue with them, you can't have any communication, you can't have any exchange, even though these groups have never attacked any of these European countries. So it's kind of crazy that they would still be deemed to be enemies of the European countries or even considered to be terrorists, but yet legally that is the case. That's exactly the designation. And one has to ask the question, how did they get there? Well, I think there's a lot of work by the Israel lobby in those countries that have made that possible. And so again, it doesn't need to stand on any real substantial case. It just needs, someone just needs to wave a magic wand and say, that's they're bad guys, and that's the end of that. And it'll stay that way in perpetuity. As long as there's an Israel lobby, all of these designations will stay in perpetuity because the lobby is lobbying for the designation of all of these organizations, so that they're basically persona non grata in the eyes of any Western, namely G7 countries. G7 countries. And what does that do? It keeps the war machine going. Less diplomacy, less negotiations, no chance of a negotiated settlement, literally designating a country's army as a terrorist group when they haven't engaged, to anyone's knowledge, in any actual real terrorist activity, but yet you actually have a state that is engaged in genocide and terrorism that's not designated by the G7 countries, and that is Israel and the IDF. How else can you describe what they're doing? It's very difficult. So that's the long and the short of it. That is the basic synopsis of what's happening, and like it or not, whether it's something that you agree with or not, some people might not like the fact that, pundits like myself are actually pointing this out. That in itself can be deemed to be offensive. Even if I'm just reading off a Wikipedia page, the fact that I'm saying it or saying it publicly, then that's a problem. So there we are, that's where we're at. So anyway, those are a couple of developments that have come to the fore. So we will see how all this shakes out in the short term. So it is interesting. It is interesting. So thank you for your time, and we'll wrap up this Sunday Wire. And I hope you enjoyed the scenery. Just to give you another look, it's the iconic Tate Modern. That's the Thames, looking a little bit murky. I think they need to do some more oxygenation of the water. But anyway, there's fish living there apparently. They have done a good job oxygenating the water in the Thames. It kind of brought it back to life. See, there's wildlife there. There's some seabirds, fishing. It's a tidal river. You can see people down there on the bank. So yeah, life has come back to the Thames somewhat, and that's always a good thing. And yeah, so London's always changing. That's the thing. They're constantly refitting, renewing, refurbing, renovating. It never ends. It never ends. The city is one big building site that never. The old saying is, London will be great once they finish it, which will be never. So it's always going to be that. It's always going to be under renovation. That's just the nature of the city. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys go this week. Episode 604 of the Sunday Wire, your weekly omnibus news and analysis radio program. If you guys feel so inclined, we appreciate your support. Thank you to everybody in the comment section for your engagement. Appreciate it. Thank you for the super chats and the stickers. Sorry we weren't able to give those individual shout outs this week, but some of our regulars as well have donated. And if you want to support this platform, 21st Century Wire, the Sunday Wire. Subscribe and become a member at 21wire.tv. Just go to the donate button. It's there on the top left-hand part of the menu, the little gold button. You hit donate. A lot of different ways you can donate. Better subscribe and become a member. Monthly subscription, just over $5 a month, makes a huge, huge difference. We're going to need that support going forward. And you saw the sort of work that we're able to do on the road in places like Iran. Listen, that's not possible without your support. So we need you guys. I know you love this show. You love the work that we're doing. We need you guys to step up as much as you can if you're able to. If you haven't done already, if you have, thank you very much for helping us out. If not, then consider supporting us. That's all we can say. We'll do our best to bring you the best news, the best analysis, the most cogent and thoughtful takes, and maybe a little history lesson here and there, as we did today. But we'll be changing scenery very soon. We might do another installment of this on Monday or Tuesday, but somewhere else, maybe in the city. But thank you guys so much. It's been great. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This is the Sunday Wire here on 21stcenturywire.com, alternatecurrentradio.com. Take care, you guys. All the best.
All right. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Patrick. Great to have him drop in with the walk and talk today. And, I think we're going to take a brief music break, and then Basil, Valentine and Ruckus will join us for Overdrive. So I will let you know ahead of time. This next track is from The Real Anthem. You can find all the links to The Real Anthems at Bandcamp and their X account and all that stuff on the show page. So be sure and check out the show page at 21stcenturywire.com. We'll be right back.
Cover in the dark, secret wars are waged, quiet army sabotage, bloody tension remains, global faces of a crime, a sleight of hand betrays. Something slept inside their hearts as explosions rage. The system breaks as truth increases. The grip on us and the world order ceases. Behind the mask, it's falling to pieces. What comes next? Have they lost all reason? Paper empires catch a spark as vultures come to prey. Hollow kings are losing ground. Shadows of decay. The walls begin to show a crack as ancient echoes fade. Scales shall fall from blinded eyes, renewing all our faith. The system breaks as truth increases. The grip on us and the world order ceases. Behind the mask, it's falling to pieces. What comes next? Have they lost all reason?
This is Sunday Wire, episode 604. I'm Bryan McClain, filling in for Patrick Henningsen while he's out and about. And thanks, Patrick, once again for the video. It was very cool to see where you're at and get some impromptu history there, some impromptu art to go with our geopolitics. Now, we're busting into the Overdrive segment here, so we're going to bring Ruckus and Basil aboard. And before we do that, let me just remind you to hit that like button if you haven't done that yet. That helps a lot. And big appreciation to everybody joining in on the chat over there on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. We're not on BitChute today. I could not get BitChute to open up and give me all the little digits and alphanumerical things I needed. So sorry, BitChute. We'll see if we can get this uploaded to you later. Let's bring Ruckus aboard here, and we'll bring Basil aboard for a moment. Is he ready? We'll bring Basil aboard when he's back ready with us. Ruckus, what's up, man? Welcome to Sunday Wire. How you doing?
Good. Howdy, everybody.
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. So, Iran strikes back. Here we are.
Well, man, this is so shocking and surprising. Did not see it coming, Hesher. So I'm just like, that's why my mouth is wide open and I can barely lift my jaw off the floor today. So apologies to everybody. No, clearly this is, what, as you said so intricately earlier during your opening, what did you think was going to happen? It's actually, when you were saying that, I kept thinking, because MAGA loves the military in particular, they love to run around with this expression that the kids like to use, FAFO, remember? And they're like, oh, well, here's the definition of what that's supposed to really technically mean in the bad way. And unfortunately, they were just using it like, oh, tee-hee-hee-hee, we're fun, we're cool, the slop propaganda coming from this current administration's White House. But yeah, again, this is exactly what we would expect to happen. And, to suggest or to assume or to think or to conspire, theorize that maybe they're stupid and they're like, well, shoot, we didn't know this was going to happen. No, of course they knew this was going to happen. And I could make the argument that they would want this to happen, because when there are these incidents like this, it draws the American people together in throwing their support behind more action against the alleged enemy. So they love it when there are casualties, to be honest. That's my opinion, personal one. I don't love it. I think it's terrible across the board. Everybody, anybody, soldiers, both sides, civilians in particular, that's the big no-no, but we seem to be just moving forward with all that. So, I'm with you on this one, Hesher, and Patrick as well. And hello, Basil.
Hey, Basil, how you doing?
Good evening, gentlemen. Just switching cameras here to the right one. That should be better.
All right, now you're looking in place. Yeah. So what do you think, Basil? I mean, I was talking earlier, and Patrick mentioned it too. Bombing train tracks, bombing desalination plants, bombing schools. I mean, and then the faux shock at being effectively retaliated.
Retaliation. No, it's well, from where we were a few weeks ago with J.D. Vance making sort of dovish noises and seemingly the end of the hot war in sight. Optimism sprouting all round, and now suddenly we're at the lowest ebb. And why? Well, did the United States ever have any, as Patrick said, ever have any intention of abiding by the memorandum of understanding? Or was all that just simply a pause so that munitions could be restocked? We're supposed to have had this falling out between Trump and Netanyahu, everybody hates you. It's reminiscent of the so-called rows between Biden and Netanyahu at the height of the genocide, which incidentally, of course, is carrying on. I mean, I've seen the most horrific pictures coming out of Gaza in the last 24 hours of bombing of civilian targets, including a funeral procession, a child literally ripped in half, and this doesn't even cause a ripple. I mean, the Guardian, supposedly the world's leading liberal voice, it likes to call itself. I went to check the masthead and the headlines last night, and apparently the most important thing in the world was that England had beaten France by 6-4 in the third place playoff for the World Cup. That was the lead story, and various related stories. Plus, of course, Andy Burnham's takeover at number 10 Downing Street. Not a word of the slaughter in Gaza, not a word of the extremely dangerous escalations in Iran. So it's a real sort of twilight zone we're entering now, with arguably the most dangerous period of international conflict of our lifetimes. I'm not exaggerating, certainly in terms of its impact on the world economy, as well, of course, as the potential for escalation. Meanwhile, the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the West Bank is, again, criminally underreported, quite apart from the fact that it now seems to have the tacit support of the United States, certainly with respect to the individual masquerading as the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. I mean, he says nothing about the pogroms, the anti-Palestinian pogroms in the West Bank, nothing about Gaza, of course. I mean, we heard for months, didn't we? Just release the hostages and we'll stop slaughtering people. Release the hostages. Well, they were all released months ago. They're still slaughtering people. Hamas poses no credible threat to anybody outside the tiny enclave, the tiny concentration camp into which Palestinians have been herded. And yet the bombing continues. It's just, you know, the oldest phrase in the book, they can get away with murder. They know they can, and so they will. Because slaughtering Palestinians is a fun hobby for Israelis, it seems. There's no other way of looking at it. They don't have any respect for Palestinian life at all. In fact, they, you know, the vast majority of the Israeli population want to kill as many as possible. They want to try and engineer that same kind of mentality vis-a-vis Iranians, and one could cogently argue vis-a-vis left-wing Americans or anybody else in the world who doesn't fit with Marco Rubio's idea of what civilization consists of. I mean, that ministerial that he held last week with Stephen Miller, haranguing 60 other countries into taking action against this phantom threat of left-wing extremism and violence. I mean, it's a combination of sort of ideological bankruptcy with extremely high levels of militant force, diplomatic blockages at every stage to, you know, try and enforce the rules-based order. That the way that they said last week they're going to do everything they can to dismantle the ICC brick by brick. I mean, this, you put it all together, we're dealing with a sort of level of barbarity that is, with, if you put it all together, is without doubt far and away the worst of our lifetimes. I'm over 60 now, and as Patrick was saying, or as you were saying in your intro, Hesher, even to get back to the sort of Dan Rather days of propaganda would be, to get back to the Alexander Haig, Henry Kissinger levels of diplomacy would be fantastic. You know, these people were at least largely sane. They you know, they did view things in terms of proportionality and you know, the general avoidance of war. I mean, we know you know, Kissinger's Cambodian crimes and all the rest of it, but I mean, compared to the utter scumbags that we've now got running Western policy, you know, they were paragons of virtue, you know. So you put it all together, the Fourth Estate has completely abdicated any sense of responsibility. That's been true of Burnham's recent pronouncements, press not holding him to account, nobody holding his feet to the fire about Gaza. And when he spoke on Friday at this special conference of the Labour Party, where he was effectively crowned president of Britain, forgive my mixed metaphors, but not a word about Gaza there, you know, or the ongoing genocide or anything. I mean, the way we've been forced to be normalized to these war crimes, whether it's the war of aggression against Iran or the endless slaughter of Palestinian children is really, really sickening. I know a lot of people, anybody of any sort of, dare I say it, sort of slightly higher IQ or awareness or evolved consciousness in any way, is really, really challenged by the global situation at the moment and the supine way that it's not reported, by corporate media. It's a double whammy. I mean, if the terrible things that were happening in the Middle East were sort of at least all over the headlines, shock, horror, and a huge pushback, and demonstrations on the streets of Washington and all the rest of it, then one might feel there was some hope. But instead we get this as I say, completely supine acquiescence to the most horrific situation imaginable. There you go. That's my tuppenny worth, guys.
Muted.
It's completely unhinged. I probably won't subject everybody to it, but in my backup reel today, I have a carousel, a literal carousel of Lindsey Graham talking about how it's not America first, it's Israel first, how we should use nuclear weapons on these people, how, and I see like so-called patriots out there saying, oh, leave Lindsey Graham alone. He was on Capitol Hill. Are you kidding me? He literally told everybody in the world, I don't care about America. I'm with Israel. He literally told people, I would like to have seen some of those people at J6 shot in the head summarily. I mean, talk about a guy that just dances on the graves of people and just craps on their surviving family members and threatens entire populations, entire countries with nuclear annihilation. And people are disappointed that this guy's gone. I mean, if I was to sit here and play all 5 or 6 of the clips I have of him, I don't see how anybody could sit there and watch that and go, yeah, this government's great and we should respect these octogenarian leaders as they exit planet Earth stage right. I'm sorry. No, there's a reason why people are celebrating, and that's because people like him, and when I say people like him, I'm talking about such a massive swath of our government, either overtly or by omission, supporting the same things. It is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. I mean, the General Synod of the Church of England this week voted to hear a document produced by a Palestinian Christian organization, Kairos, in which they describe Israel as genocidal, apartheid, settler colonial, all the rest of it. It's wonderful that it was adopted. I mean, only in as much as the church has agreed to listen to it. I mean, my God, wow. Believe it or not, the chief rabbi of England, whose son is in the genocide army, he didn't want it even discussed, but nor did the Board of Deputies of British Jews, but they did discuss it at the General Synod, and they voted in favour of what was a watered down motion. Originally it was going to be to adopt the document or something, but extraordinarily, since the vote on Monday, there are Zionists within the Church of England pushing back against it, basically saying, no, we mustn't hear the testimony of Palestinian Christians who are being systematically exterminated. We mustn't even listen to them. And these people are walking around wearing dog collars, masquerading as priests. I mean, the depths to which we've sunk with respect to morality and ethics, there don't seem to be any guiding principles, certainly amongst the ruling class, but even now it seems amongst many of the clergy. I mean, I know you are infected with the poison of Christian Zionism in the United States more than we are. I mean, I know there are a lot of, Protestant, it's almost entirely a Protestant thing, Christian Zionism.
But the problem with that, Basil, is that it's actually infected our politics and our media. It
Of
would be
course.
fine if it would be fine if that was just doing its own thing every Sunday during the churches. That's bad enough. But to have it literally basically being used as a tool, a lever, as it were, to promote this proxy war on behalf of Israel, because it's in the name of this Christian Zionism that there's so much support for, alleged support for it. Whereas I think, like, what's the graphic behind Hesher that I made today, that's how I feel that most people are just reacting. It's just, to them, they're so detached about everything, either side. It's just they're watching a movie on a screen. And like, even though America just took a punch, they don't care, because that's what happened. One guy takes a punch and now it's the next guy's turn. There's going to be another guy taking a punch, and they're just watching a movie. It hasn't really affected them yet. And that's another problem with this, because the whole thing has actually kind of become entertaining to a lot of people who would normally be disinterested, because they scroll their X feeds and they see these amusing propaganda videos with the Legos and the cool music and the hip hop and stuff. And it's like, and then they want to learn a bit about it, and you realize, well, okay, well, these countries that the West is bullying America and Israel, they're the little guys. They're the ones that you usually, again, in the movies, are rooting for. So when they see the downtrodden, I mean, it's all a giant fail as far as the propaganda is concerned, unless it's all intentional. And I can't figure it out. But the depravity, the dehumanizing, labeling people as animals. If only there was some major historical event in recent times that we all learned about in school that would have reminded us that this is bad. What could it be? Oh, isn't that ironic? You know what I mean? That, weren't we supposed to have learned the Holocaust lesson thing? Like, this is what happens when people are treated less than human and beings, and they're called animals and dogs. This is bad. This should never happen again. And now it's happening again, except guess who's doing it? I don't get it, because I can't view human life that, carelessly. I just don't understand how people can do it.
And most people can't. That's why what Basil just said is like, they're not allowing people to have voices. They don't even want us to have a voice. But
No.
even worse than that, they don't want to let victims to have a voice. I mean, just
That's
look at
right.
those MK Ultra hearings we just saw. Not a single victim in the room. There are living victims and living family members of victims, but no voice for them. Let's just make it about power, right? Principles and power. We'll make it about principles and power. We'll make it about history, and we'll all pretend like that isn't still happening, and that it's not just being amplified and been made worse. And to your point, Basil, if victims and if war correspondency and reality were properly documented and properly, truthfully displayed with transparency to the people around the world, the whole world would stand up and say, no, enough of this. Stop this. I think at this point that would happen if we had an honest media, but we're way, way beyond that pie in the sky.
I mean, even 20 years ago, a bombing that killed a couple of dozen people in Gaza was front page news, and there would be questions in the House of Commons and this, that, and the other. Now it's just like relegated to a footnote. And indeed, Israeli spokesmen have said what a triumph it is that they're able to kill as many Palestinians as they like, and nobody gives a damn. Really, really sick, really demonic situation that we're in. The depravity is the word. Only way to describe it. It's really, really challenging, to be perfectly to go about one's sort of normal business. Let's be optimistic. Let's be positive. Let's read some interesting philosophy or something, or maybe try and write some music, do something. It's very difficult to do that in the current situation, if you ask me, unless you're just sort of so completely narcissistic and wrapped up in your own world and really don't care about what's going on to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a problem. OCC Doc 8423 just said it. Stupid, egocentric American mindset. No one gives an what about anyone but themselves. And we were talking with congressional candidate Greg Stoker about this. We were talking about this mindset with regards to data centers, because one of his platform planks in his campaign is data centers and how to, educate people in small towns here in Central Texas about how to understand them, the methodologies they're using, the realities of the amounts of water and power they're going to use. And while he was talking about this, he pointed out the NIMBY factor, the not in my
Yes.
backyard factor. And it's like, it's a perfect example of the pitfall of that mindset that OCC Doc just stated. If it's not affecting you directly in your backyard in America, there's a high likelihood that you just don't care. And it's like, we can't have that mindset, on a small level. I can't even say this is a small level, but what I'm about to compare it to makes it small. On a small level, we can't have the neighboring counties, the neighboring constituencies allowing their populations to dry up, to have too expensive power, to not have water or have contaminated water. That's not my backyard, but you know what? When it's the neighboring county's backyard, or 5 counties south or 5 counties north, people are going to start coming to our county. People that are, you know what I mean? They're going to come here looking for water. But guess what? In our county, they've got 8 data centers planned. So it's almost like a flooding of the zone, a Steve Bannon type.
Eight data centers planned in your county.
Yep, in our town.
Wow. Each what in your town?
Yes.
Was going to be the data center capital of Texas or something? Is that the plan? Or
I think Texas
is every town going to be subject to the same kind of? Each one, I assume, is the size of a couple of dozen football pitches.
Oh, they're big. They're huge. They're huge. And the people that pitch them to the city councils are so shrewd. They are so shrewd about how they pitch.
It's always about jobs, isn't it? It's always about jobs.
Yep.
This will create so many jobs. That's all people ever want to hear.
Yep.
Jobs. That's it.
They have this new talking point too, to appease people who are concerned environmentally. They say the water that this system requires will be self-contained. It's not going to be constantly drawing from your reservoirs. They'll say other things too, like the amount of power that this is going to use is no bigger than the amount of power of 3 or 4 restaurants or, large businesses. And it's just like, what are you talking about? And of course it's super confusing because all these data centers are managed by shell companies that are owned by tech bros 5 levels up. So the tech bros 5 levels up, they conspire with whoever they need to conspire with in the local constituencies. There's a town called Taylor, not far from us, where the old mayor and the new mayor conspired. I'm not saying conspiracy theoried. I'm saying they literally conspired so that the predecessor could make sure that the next guy, his best friend from high school and business partner, would be the next mayor of that town. And then they conspired to pass a bill in the town that would make it such that the townsfolk could not recall the governor. And then they both made money on bringing a data center in, and they took land from a fellow that died and tried to donate his property to be a park in the town, and they're going to put a data center there. It's amazing the kind of crony corruption that is going on even in small little towns here in Texas over data centers. And these ghouls come in and they say, oh, we're going to bring a bunch of jobs. We're going to regentrify your town. It's going to be part of the new Silicon Hills of Texas. You're going to love it. And then what happens? Everybody's water's bad. There's a humming sound driving them insane all night. It's a mess, man.
Vote harder.
Right. But then you compare that to what's going on with our tax dollars, with the violence in the Middle East, with all the lying, with the genocide, the ethnic cleansing. And it's like, oh, gee, this not in my backyard thing really has kind of you can see just how far it's mushroomed. It's the whole planet now.
But remember, left-wing terrorism is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
So that's what you've got to remember.
Well, only because they're taking down the flock cameras, Basil. They're That's the only reason I think they care about left-wing terrors at this time in this
Is
timeline.
that what you think? Is that what you think sparked last week's ministerial?
I think so, because I think we're about to see the pushback, the action, the way that they did the BLM stuff, the way they're pushing back and doing these gatherings in front of the ICE detention centers. Can you picture that once that starts happening at the data centers? We cannot have that. So I think that they're really preparing that kind of thing. And I think they're gonna do like the peanut butter and chocolate or Reese's mix with the Iran stuff. And I think there'll probably be some sort of Laura Loomer predicted event, probably, maybe even close. I mean, they could just tie all this together and it was funded by China, and then the power goes out. Who the hell knows? I mean, but it's all bad. But yeah, I really do believe that part of this push for left-wing terrorism has to do something with the pushback against the technocracy.
Interesting. Yeah, I just want to pick up on a meme I saw today, produced by British journalist Richard Murphy, about neoliberalism, because I think there's a direct line between the politics at home, the economics at home, and the devil-may-care attitude towards mass slaughter abroad. Neoliberalism arguably started with the election of Margaret Thatcher in May 1979 in Britain. And then, of course, the very sort of capitalist version of social democracy that you had in the United States, well, that was replaced in 1980 with the ascension of Ronald Reagan to the presidency, with an ideological bedfellow of Thatcher, both monetarists, both believing in trickle-down economics. And that was when the whole sort of greed is good mantra first reared its ugly head, and people began to believe that society would not look after them. In fact, that it was wrong for society to look after people, that every man for himself was the only way society should be organized, could be organized, that there was really no alternative. And I do think that's filtered through. People are repeatedly told, says Richard Murphy, that there's no alternative to neoliberalism. Rules are created to limit government action to combat it. Fiscal rules and austerity become not just political choices, but the norm. And the result is less democratic freedom to actually solve problems. People say increasingly that even if you had a Mamdani type figure elected as president of the United States, there's scope for what they can do because of the way the civil service has been institutionalized and neoliberalized over the last 40 years means it's extremely limited. Power moves away from elected governments. Power moves towards markets, finance, and corporations. Citizens become simply consumers. Profit becomes more important than care, and public choices become private opportunities. Now, but there are various myths about the economics of it. One is that the government is like a household and needs to balance its books in the same way as a household. Of course, that's arrant nonsense. That spending depends solely on tax and borrowing. But in fact, as we all know, currency issuing governments create the money they spend. But of course, in the United States, all that has to be exported to kill for foreign states. So I do think that, as I say, this indifference really to the carnage, to the descent into barbarity, is the result of 47 years of ideological neoliberalism, which is inculcated in people that they really should and certainly can only look after themselves and their immediate family, and everybody else, whether they're down the road in your community, let alone thousands of miles away, well, I'm afraid you can just go hang.
That's a really interesting thought there, Basil, because I remember, growing up in California, very disinterested in politics. I really did not care for it, did not like it, didn't grow up following it, and just kind of you know, went with the flow, tried to be as good of a free human being, a free young person as I could, sort of a golden rule type of person. But then when I got I'm gonna use the word, when I got triggered and, started looking into 9/11, started looking into the origins of, fiat currency and started reading about it and following the current events, I really had to sort of audit my own, you know, political worldview because I didn't really have one, you know what I mean? And when I did that, I discovered I had to unravel and throw away a lot of that neoliberalism of the 80s and 90s. In the early 2000s, I had to do that. And it was like pulling weeds, you know what I mean? It was like spending a lot of time in the mirror going, wait, that thing I thought is a political talking point. That thing I thought is tied to um, identity politics and it's used as propaganda, and I still may feel morally about that topic the way I had before, but now I have the context to know that I'm being manipulated because I have a moral associated with that topic. So I feel like that thing what you just described, the like purveyance, sort of that, omnipresence of neoliberalism amongst the television, the music, the entertainment, the theater, your parents, your teachers, like you don't even realize when you're in the indoctrination camps in this country, at least I could speak for myself, that you're being indoctrinated.
That's right. I mean, pop music was the epicenter of the counterculture, whether it was less overtly political acts like the Grateful Dead or more engaged people like John Lennon, who I've written about in the upcoming edition of the column, which Ruckus kindly proofread for me, and his assassination likely, I think, at the hands of a victim of MK Ultra, Mark David Chapman. No longer. Now pop music is purely entertainment. I mean, in fact, if you dig around a bit, you can find some fine references online. You may know something about this, Ruckus, to the CIA's promotion of violent rap music. I don't know.
Rumors.
There are rumors, certainly, aren't there? I remember finding. I mean, you might struggle to find them now, the way Google has been edited.
I remember stories about a meeting where people may not have left the room alive. Let's just say.
Wow, yeah.
Just rumors.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Pop music was a vehicle for the counterculture, for positive social change. In many ways, that ended with Lennon's assassination in 1980. The 70s also being a decade of tremendous creativity in music. I mean, if you think what was around at the beginning and the end of the decade, music traveled an enormously long way. Whereas, like clothing and fashion, it's now completely stagnated. There aren't really any new genres that come along or any particular innovations that identify one decade from another. You've got subcategories of music, but they've remained largely static for the last 15 years, and a lot of young people hark back to the 70s as an era of tremendous creativity and innovation, when a lot of the best music was produced and a lot of the best bands were around, some of them still going on absolutely their very last legs. But so it all results in the sort of degradation of the zeitgeist, as it were, that we're living in more impoverished times, spiritually, morally, intellectually, creatively, culturally, and in every other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like you would see certain people, certain artists elevated, and then you would see other ones, like John Lennon, or some even would say like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh.
Oh, well, Bob Marley was he was killed with a poisoned boot. Did you know that one?
Yeah, I'm I'm hip to that, and I think that is one of the most ridiculous and tragic things. It's just like going after honest musicians who don't want to play with well, like Lala Wawa says here. Lots of Jewish music producers. That's just a fact. That is just a fact. And you can look, I would point to Michael Jackson speaking at the podium a few years before he died, talking about Sony, talking about his managers. I could say the same thing about Ye, the text messages that were released between Ye and his quote unquote personal trainer are very illuminating. Look at Britney Spears. I have never seen a person that I would, my so quickly jump to, oh my God, that poor woman has been abused, and mind controlled, and look at her life now. It's like a husk of a human. I'm sorry, Brittany. I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry they did that to you, but I have a sneaky suspicion that some of the things that you've said are true, and that you deal with similar things as Michael Jackson and Ye and all these other people that are allowed to, ascend or brought to ascension because someone thinks they can make money off of them, but then control the rest of their lives.
Yep,
She's under a
that's about the size of
conservatorship or
it.
something, right?
She's been in and out of conservatorship, and I don't know the current status. I follow her on IG, and I sometimes see her
The
schizophrenic
knives are
dances.
out, right?
Yeah, knives out, schizophrenic dancing. I worry about her, frankly.
She should be a knife salesman, spokesperson of some sort, and it'll be a perfect fit for her.
That would be a way
See,
better gig.
You're welcome. Ginsu, give her a call.
Yeah. CIA used the music industry to brainwash the American young people at large. There's a lot of proof of
Yeah,
that.
well,
Through Dave McGowan's work.
Combination of brainwash and sort of sent to sleep. As I say, no longer a vehicle for protest, except in a sort of ghettoized corner. Some of the artists that we play on this show, doing our best to sort of keep the spirit alive, so to speak. But corporate media want nothing to do with any musicians that have got any kind of meaningful message.
Well, you know what?
They're happy with the AI slop, though. Apparently,
Yeah.
Sorry,
but they are in trouble because I have noticed recently. I've been to a lot of concerts this year, and I have been to several, more than several, where the singer of the band between songs will shout their support for Palestine and shout their disdain for Netanyahu, for Israel, for Trump, for ICE, for technocracy. It went completely, almost deathly silent right around 2015, 2016 in this regard, at least in my circles where I hang out for music, which is mostly extreme metal. I'd have to make a list of the amount of bands that have gotten up on stage and aggressively and loudly said, F Israel, F Bibi Netanyahu, free Palestine. I've heard that a lot of times. And these aren't bands that you'll be hearing on the radio or I guess there's no MTV anymore. That failed. They're out there on YouTube. That's about it. But it has grown. It's mushroomed over the last few years. Like after, we're 6 years beyond the introduction of COVID now. We're almost 5 years beyond the Ukraine war starting, like 2 years beyond this crap going on in the Middle East. And people are pissed off. Off.
Yeah, no, they certainly are. I mean, it's been reflected to some extent in elections in the United States, obviously with your Democratic Socialists winning some of those primaries. There's an interesting contest going on to see who replaces Graham Plattner up in Maine. That will be fascinating to see what goes on there. And of course, Abdul al-Sayed in Michigan against that absolutely dreadful Nancy Stevens, isn't it? The woman who dreams about Israel. Did you see that this week?
Yeah.
Israel comes to me in my dreams, she says. So that would be very interesting. I mean, I was just thinking, picture Abdul al-Sayed actually in the Senate. The Chuck Schumer's of this world won't know what to make of him, let alone the Republicans. Is this? He just does not fit the mold of what what you're supposed to look like or sound like if you're in the U.S. Senate. So but let's hope he gets in. It's only one individual, obviously, but it's so slow moving, the change. That's the thing. Is are we going to see a big enough turnaround in the time we've got left? There's still a long way to go in this administration, isn't there? We're only halfway through the second year. They've still got 30 months to do an enormous amount of damage. I mean, what do you think this clampdown on so-called left-wing terrorism will look like? The very, as usual, very vague language is used to sort of designate groups. Vague when describing the groups that are being targeted, but hyperbolic when it comes to the supposed impact of these groups on society. These are the enemies of civilization, aren't they? These people want to murder your children in their beds. Really quite extraordinary stuff. I mean, are they going to try and move against DSA?
I was just going to say real quick, maybe that it would be a beta test of some sort for the track and trace, the flock cameras and the grid that they're building. If they can start labeling certain groups and activities this way, and then do their little thing and get it ready for the next administration, and then churn all of that against the current crowd, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a bit of a conflagration. It's going to be. Let me put it this way. I think that what's happening right now with Ukraine, with Gaza, multiple other locations in Africa and in South and Central America, is they are using those populations as guinea pigs. They don't care about those populations. They want to take all that land and all those resources. They want to set up their little technates, get rid of borders and all that stuff. And they have all this new stuff to do. There's a factory in Ukraine that cranks out like 10,000 drones a day or something like that. They're deploying all these sort of track and trace AI, monitored and targeting systems to all these conflict zones right now. Like, they're working the bugs out. Not only are they committing genocide and ethnic cleansing and war crimes, but they're guinea pigging everybody that they're killing. They're guinea pigging all these grounds. And guess what they're going to do with the lessons learned? They're going to bring them back home here to the United States. These data centers are not just data centers, they're surveillance centers. There's only one reason why you would need so many of them and so much memory and storage and processing power. That's because you're collecting everything on everyone, and it's all in their little Palantir machines and their data centers, and that's all buzzing around in the protons and the wires and stuff like that. And ultimately what it means is that the tech bros and the big government, the Zionist military machine with all of their military intelligence might, they now have these systems that they can literally track and trace everyone and know everything about them. And they're going to bring that back to the United States, while Americans are getting rightfully upset about data centers coming here and unconstitutional surveillance. There's going to be a huge organic buildup of people that actually care about this, people that are going to shake off the NIMBY factor and say, no, you're not going to do this in my country. And then it's going to be just like a whole bunch of J6s. Every time those people go meet somewhere to do whatever activism that they think is correct as an American, there's going to be a whole bunch of dipshits there in masks and with newspapers hanging out of their back pocket and khaki pants and whatever, just like there was at J6. And they're going to conflate it into, a terrorist movement. And I'll end by also pointing out that the CEO of Flock recently sat down with someone, and he he was talking about DFlock. Someone asked him about dflock.com. Dflock.com is simply an informational website. It shows you where all the flock cameras are in your town. You're going to be surveilled. You should have a right to know where the cameras are, at least, because it's kind of murky in public, being filmed in public. But the CEO of Flock called the DFlock website terrorists. He literally said that these terrorists ... to describe an informational website. So I think he gave away the whole script right there.
I would not visit
Yeah,
that
no.
website without a VPN, people. Just saying.
Yeah.
How much you want to bet, Hesher, that entire website was actually created by the feds? How much of a conspiracy theorist are you? That's where I'm going to go.
Well, I mean, we could find out, or we could at least find out what name or LLC it's owned under. That would be an interesting exercise.
I'm guessing it's going to have some relationship to a certain ally in the Middle East region. Just a guess.
Wouldn't that be disappointing?
It would be.
Yeah, quite apart from the agent provocateur, you know, let's not forget they'll put some masked thugs planted inside any genuinely organic grassroots protest movements to start the violence, and then that will be met with overwhelming force by jackbooted thugs, and you know, take it from there. You know,
exactly. It was just released this week, I believe. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going by memory. Forgive me if I get some of the numbers wrong, but there was something that went on with J6, and it was stated by, I think, someone at the FBI that there are like 11,000 hours of footage, camera footage, that they can't show or use in court because there's so many feds, there's so many undercovers and CIs and all this stuff in those videos. So it's like we've been saying ever since J6. This is not an insurrection, it's a fedsurrection. It's a fedsurrection, and they will not allow an actual protest to go down. They will take control of it. They'll put provocateurs in there. They'll do violence. And it's just, you know, it's one of the most, I think, demoralizing things is like, that's where we're at with you know, protest and rights right now.
Yeah. And that's when you overcome the apathy. I mean, that's yeah.
Right. You finally shake off the apathy and the NIMBY, and you get out there and you think you're doing a good thing. And next thing you know, you're J6'd.
You're alone in a jail cell covered in bruises, facing a 10-year prison sentence. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
As long as you're not sitting there wondering, did I come up with this idea by myself, or did the algorithm make me do this? You'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Dangerous times, my friends. All right. We're a couple hours in. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss today, Basil? Do you have any booking or betting stuff you wanted to throw down before we get out of here?
Well, it's the World Cup final kicking off in 3/4 of an hour's time. Which city is it in? I'm ashamed to say I don't know.
I have no idea, man. I only watch clips of corrupt referees.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about. So there.
Well, that's ironically rather impressive. Let's have a look. I think it might be in New York. That would be the obvious place, wouldn't it? Tonight, where is it?
Is it U.S. and Belgium, or what do we got going?
No, it's at the New Jersey Stadium in East Rutherford, which technically counts as New York, I believe.
Yeah, they may have poor air quality there.
Right. No, that's interesting. And it's between Spain and Argentina. So an all Latin final. Of course, bizarrely, one might say, over the course of the tournament, two very distinct storylines have emerged. One is that FIFA and its referees have cheated on Argentina's behalf because, well, A, they possess the world's most gifted player at the moment, the aging Lionel Messi, but B, because he is a self-confessed Zionist, as is the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, and Israel has expressed support for the Argentinian team. They have the same blue and white colors. So Argentina has, over the course of the tournament, become the team of Zionism. And Spain, because it dares to push back against Israel and the United States to a small degree under the socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, is seen as the team of the resistance. So I think certainly more than any time I can remember, we have a politicized World Cup final between the European team of resistance and liberation and the sort of fascist South American outpost in alliance with Israel.
Yeah.
It really is quite bizarre. Now, whether or not the FIFA referees cheat again in favor of Argentina, then we'll have to watch the match very closely tonight. Everybody will be watching very closely. Oh, speaking of which, there was a great tweet on this subject from Che Bose. Just bear with me a second while I get it out. It's about the referee for tonight's match.
Oh yeah, he sounded like he was potentially highly compromised sort of person. He's got a checkered history, right?
That's right. Joe tweets a lot, so he's got quite a lot going on. I've got to scroll down here. Yeah, he's been involved in rumors that the World Cup is fixed and run by gangsters are ridiculous. Now, it's well known that Infantino, the president, the weird sort of Mr. Magoo-like bald-headed cretin that runs FIFA, it wants to expand the whole thing to 64 countries next time round in order to make more money. Well, the referee for tonight's match is someone called Slavko Vincic, a Slovenian. He'll be in charge of the final. He was arrested 6 years ago in a brothel where cocaine, guns, and 20,000 euros were found. But of course, other than that, he's of impeccable moral standing and character, and I'm sure his family stood by him. So my English team, Leeds United, were disgracefully cheated out of the European Cup back in 1975 in Paris in a match against Bayern Munich by a referee who was bribed by the Germans. Leeds had a perfectly good goal disallowed and weren't given a stone cold penalty.
Oh, that came out as a fact that it was a cheat?
Yeah, you can look it up. There's a documentary about it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. But no retrospective awarding of the cup to Leeds, unfortunately. And that was the beginning of the end for the dominant team of the early 1970s in Britain. The fans in Paris in 1975, the Leeds fans are not afraid to show their emotions. They dismantled part of the stadium in Paris, the old Parc des Princes, as a result of which Leeds were banned from European football for 3 years. And that, of course, means you can't attract the same caliber of players. General pall of gloom hung over the club, and they weren't the same afterwards. So all as a result of cheating, bribery, and corruption. I don't like to think that there's bribery and corruption at the heart of international football. One likes to think that that the game is sacrosanct, but unfortunately, this cup has dragged it into the gutter. Of course, we also had Donald Trump intervening on behalf of Balogun, the American striker who was sent off and then reinstated for the next match against Belgium, which they lost anyway. But that was absolutely disgraceful, totally unprecedented, never happened before in a World Cup. So, and then Infantino came out with I don't know if you saw this, the press conference yesterday, said that this World Cup was the greatest cultural event in the history of mankind. It's just completely insane.
Wow.
It's just another indication of this. I mean, I have thought for a long time the people that get involved in the governing bodies of sports organizations, where they feather their nest with salaries running to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, are some of the most venal, self-serving, what's the word? Incapable, incompetent plutocrats you can possibly imagine. We had all that scandal with the International Olympic Committee, didn't we? Sepp Blatter, FIFA, and all completely, corrupt, only interested in feathering their own nests. Infantino seems to be even worse than his predecessors. Such a thing were possible. But I will still watch the match. I had a small double earlier in the tournament on Argentina to win it. And in order to get paid out, Norwich City have to win the championship next season. So I've got a long wait, but I'll win £1,000 if both those things happen. But in many ways tonight, even though I'll lose a few quid, I'm rooting for Spain.
All right. Yep. Sounds like the moral thing to do at this point. Gosh, like I said, I've only been watching clips on X, or like if I see it on the television out where we're eating or whatever. And there's been something about Argentina this whole time. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of weird calls, and I've seen a lot of people that know a lot more about the sport than me describing why things are looking bad. And then there's the whole Trump factor. Ruckus was telling us, or I think Photon actually was telling us, that Trump made them like allow him to go down and like handle the cup and everything like that, which the FIFA CEO doesn't even do. It's all very odd, and it feels, I don't know. I wish I could say it feels like everything's above board, but it does not.
Well, if Argentina wins, I'm sure they'll be happy to have Trump alongside them, because that's what it is. He wants to stand there and hold the cup with the winning team or something, I guess.
Oh, and you can bet the Israelis will all be jumping up and down, in celebration as well.
Well, he is their greatest president, Basil.
That's right. What we call in football the glory hunters. That's people who associate themselves with successful teams in order to sort of bask in the reflected glory. I mean, when you think about it, any kind of, sporting glory hunting must be one of the most pathetic things you can possibly do with your life. Do you know what I mean? To feel so insecure and so inadequate that, you're not a genuine follower of the team. You haven't been following them through dark times and good. You've merely tried to attach yourself to them when you think they're going to be successful, or when they are successful. Strange thing to do, really. You must be really desperate for validation.
Right? You need the validation of the entire mass media. That's pretty crazy.
It gets worse. I have a little bit of an breaking last minute news to just put a pin on everything, and I just wanted Basil to hear this. This comes from Mystical Pharaoh Hesher. He just shared this. This is a Truth Social post from Donald Trump. One of the biggest driving forces in the future for jobs are data centers. I'll just leave it there. I think you get the idea.
Big, strong, bold, and money machines for the state in which they are built.
He's complaining about New York, and he's saying how awesome it is that they're being sought in Alabama, Florida, Texas, Arizona, sorry, Patrick, and many other states. So there you have it. So he's shilling for the data centers. Now,
liquid gold.
Pretty pathetic and desperate right there as well.
Data centers are liquid gold. My goodness. Well, we got to close with a hilarious and frustrating Trump gaffe right there from Crap Social, or whatever his website's called. Oh, gosh, guys. All right. Basil, thanks for being here. Give a shout out to where people can find you this week for your activities.
I'll be back on UK Column News, 1 p.m. on Friday. That's 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm looking forward to it already.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Basil, and appreciate you joining us today. I will not be here next Sunday, so hopefully you and Ruckus will be, and you can fill in if Patrick's not back, but I bet he will be back next week. I'm guessing we'll be back to Patrick being here, and hopefully you guys will be there too. I'm going to be out doing other stuff.
Great. Good for you.
Yep. It's concert season. It's festival season. So
It
gonna
certainly
go-
is. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, there's a chance I won't be here myself for the same reason, but we'll see.
All right. Basil and
Right.
Hesher off at various festivals next
We'll
week.
see. We
Get
shall see.
yourselves ready for that. All right, Basil. Thanks, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye for now.
All right. There he goes. Ruckus, over to you. Any final thoughts for today?
And it's my birthday next weekend, so maybe I won't be here either. Maybe Patrick will
Hey,
be doing
maybe
it all
Patrick will
by
be solo.
himself. Just kidding. Well, it is my birthday next week, but that's Friday. Anyways, thanks for having me. In case y'all didn't hear the news, I was on the Jimmy Dore Show, so you can find that where you find Jimmy Dore Show stuff. Or believe it or not, I bet you if you go on the internet and just type Jimmy Dore and my name, Adam Clark, together, you'll probably find what you're looking for. Maybe I will eventually put it up on the website, alternatecurrentradio.com, under the Roundabout Ruckus moniker. But of course, the website is where you go to find all of the stuff that we do. We've got the Boiler Room there. We've got the Sunday Wire reposts there as well, Roundabout Ruckus, and then Mystical American Patriot Society and the Odd Man Out podcast, as well as music, lots of fun stuff. If you'd also like to keep track of what I'm doing, just make sure you follow me over on my X. It's AC_wordslinger. Okie dokie. Again, thanks for having me, Hesher. I love all you fine people out there. Stay safe. Peace be to all of you. Read everything. Don't believe anything unless you can prove it for yourself with your own research. Ruckus out.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. And thank you for joining us today for the show. It was great to see all of our friends and supporters and opposition researchers in the various chats today. Big shout out to everybody at 21stcenturywire.com, to the Boiler Room Discord over here, to the YouTube, to the Rumble, and to the X. And yes, since I won't be here to say happy birthday to Ruckus next week, we can all say it now. Happy birthday, Ruckus. If you want to send him a gift, you can find out how at alternatecurrentradio.com. If you want to support alternatecurrentradio.com, you can find out how at alternatecurrentradio.com/support. And if you would please become a member at 21stcenturywire.com, that would be amazing. You've seen the kind of things that we do with your support. We're very serious about it, and we know that our supporters are very serious also. So to those of you that have, thank you. To those of you thinking about it, please do, if you can. And if not, just share our work around. That would be great. On behalf of Patrick, Basil, Ruckus, the teams at 21 Wire and Alternate Current Radio, we're out of here. We'll see you next week. All the best, and have a great week. Don't let the headlines get you down. Stay strong, stay skeptical, and stay loud. See you next time here on Sunday Wire.
Show of secret talks, a cold stealing serpent calls, buildings burn, masking riot shots. It's TV terror, watch the will of God. Hey, here we are, heaven come down. Here we are, heaven come down. The culture coast consuming all our lives. Rejuvenate, resist the pulling dark. False flags and endless wars. Mass form psychosis waged. Forced medical tyranny. The complications we'll soon see.